As always, thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to join these InfoBurst webinars. We do hope you find them informative. So today we will be looking at the new release, InfoBurst 2023.2. These release webinars tend to go like 45, 50 minutes. Today's will not be that. It's going to be a lot shorter. This is kind of a tight version. It's got a few key features. So we'll talk about those and then open it up for questions, but we won't be keeping you as long today. So with that, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Bryan Baca. I'm the manager of product support at InfoSol, and I work on all things InfoBurst. So if you're using the InfoBurst product, chances are we've worked together. If you have any questions or comments outside of this webinar, please feel free to reach out to me at that email address or drop us a ticket on the help desk. We're happy to help you out and answer any questions you have. Okay, so with that, let's talk about 2023.2, the new version. That was pushed out this morning. It is general release, so you can access that version now. All the information you need about this version is available up on the InfoSol help desk. Just as a reminder, that's help.infosol.com. You'll go into the forum section, and under the release notes forum, you'll find the release notes for this version and all past versions. And within the release notes, you're going to find all the information you need about downloading the new version and then preparing to either update or install using the new version. Please, as always, make sure you review those notes, make sure you're properly backed up and prepared to update your software. And then the release notes are also going to detail all the changes in the version, new features, enhancements to existing functionality, and bug fixes. That'll all be detailed there. So please review that before you update to the new version. Okay, so let's talk about features and enhancements. As I said, this is going to be a quick list. Let's start with Tableau. For those of you that are Tableau users, 2023.2 officially supports Tableau Server 2022.3. 2022.3 came out last November, and this is the first version that we've had the window to qualify the new Tableau Server version. However, in just the last 2 months, Tableau has released a 2022.4 and a 2023.1 Tableau Server version. So far we haven't had folks asking for support on those new versions, but we are aware they're there, and we will be actually starting the qualification of the latest Tableau Server version today. If you have need to move to a Tableau Server version later than this, please reach out to us on the help desk. We'll certainly be supporting the 2023.1 version of Tableau Server in our next InfoBurst version, but we tend to support support for these Tableau Server versions tends to be forwards compatible. So it's entirely possible that if you're not on a current version of InfoBurst, you would be able to point your InfoBurst version at Tableau Server and it will just work, because all the API calls that we make, all that remains pretty static. So before you update, just reach out to us, make sure that the version is supported. And as I said, we're looking to support 2023.1 in our next InfoBurst version. So let's talk about Tableau Excel. So, and I know not all of you are Tableau users, I'm looking at the list there. Tableau does not offer an Excel format, believe it or not. It offers a CSV format. InfoBurst is able to offer Excel for Tableau workbooks by taking the CSV from Tableau and converting it to Excel. And within this, we've had users struggle with various data conversion issues. We take from a CSV file what is a bunch of strings and try to interpret format dates and numbers and that sort of thing. And so we've had users want to retain the text formatting of CSV So in 2023.2 at the delivery level for the Excel format, you can check the little box there. You see the arrow, treat as text, and we will not attempt to convert data types. We'll just produce the Excel and deliver it with everything as text. So that's a new opt-in for Tableau workbooks. Business objects. So we've made some enhancements for Crystal reports in this new version. You have 3 new formats available if you're a Crystal user: the Excel format, which is xlsx, HTML format, and it's a native format, which is actually I spelled that wrong. It's RPT, the native RPT format for Crystal reports, but this is a read-only format. You can see there at the bottom of the list in the image, RPTR. So we support both the native, which is RPT, and native read-only, which is RPTR. Just a note, you can see there again in the image, there are 3 Excel formats. InfoBurst has always supported the XLS format for Excel, which is formatted Crystal report in Excel format, but the format is XLS. We've also supported the Excel data format, which is xlsx. That comes out of Business Objects, but it is not formatted. That is data only, unformatted report. So in later 4.2 versions, SAP introduced this new Crystal Reports 2020 format, which is Excel formatted. So it's the second option there, Excel XLSX. So that is new. So it is now available, but it's not available to third parties like InfoBurst from an SDK perspective until BI 4.3 SPO3. So if you are interested in this format, then you'll need to get current on the business object side of things to leverage that new format. And hence the second bullet point there. Okay, let's see. At the system level, we've added a new section to monitor called users. And before I talk about this feature and show it off, I want to talk about what inspired it. Recently, we've had several users come to us asking for generally the ability to generate a report that shows the administrator all active users, right? The idea is I'm an admin, and let's say I need to restart the InfoBurst service for some reason, which is gonna terminate everybody's session, and they want to let folks know ahead of time, hey, finish up your work. We need to restart the service or the server, right? So they were looking to discover, which is our reporting feature, to say, hey, can we produce a report with active users? And we considered that, but then we kind of took a broader view of what the users were asking for, and instead of implementing a report that reports on active users, we've added a brand new section of the monitor section of the user interface called users. And within the users UI, you can see, as you can see here on the image, all logged in users, right? So you can see in the UI who's logged in at this moment, and then you can do some other cool things, right? So in addition to seeing the active users in the system, again, this is administrator only who can see this user's interface, you can broadcast messages to those active or logged in users. So in that scenario where I'm an admin and I want to tell everyone, hey, we're going to restart the server in 10 minutes, I can actually send a message to those users where they'll get a little pop-up in their UI with whatever message that I've sent them. I can either send messages to all logged in users, or I can target individual users. Maybe I want to tell a specific user, hey, we need to talk about this burst that you're running or something like that. So in users, I can see active users, and in a moment I'll show you, you can actually see where they are in the UI. And then we can send messages to either all active users or target individual users. And part of this new functionality, there's also a feature that allows you to receive a status pop-up when a manual job has finished. So if I'm in the UI and let's say I'm testing things and I kick off a burst and then I go to work on something else, in that scenario, there'll be a little banner that pops up and says your burst has either completed successfully or aborted. This only applies when you're in the system and you kick off something manually, you're not going to see pop-up messages for anything that's scheduled, right? This is just, I'm in there, I'm running stuff manually, and as a convenience feature, we're going to tell you the status, it finished or it aborted. And then finally, we'll talk about opting in to track what a user's looking at or user location. So let's go over to the UI and look at an example here. I'm going to come out of the slides and minimize that. All right, let's do this. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do first, in this browser window here, get rid of this stuff right there. In this browser window, I'm logged in. I'm an administrator. I'm logged in as user Bryan. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I have a second browser window open here. And in this browser window, I'm going to log in as a different user. Let's log in as user 1. Okay. And let's just say user 1 is in the system and they're working on, let's say, a burst. And let's say they're working on this crystal test burst right here. So they're in there and they've got this burst open. Now, if I come back here to my Bryan account where I'm logged in as an administrator and I go to monitor and users, I can see both users that are logged into the system. I see myself and I see user 1. There is a type column here, and that's because a user can either be logged into the main user interface, which is type InfoBurst, or if it's a portal user and they are logged into the portal, the type will read portal. So you can distinguish between main InfoBurst users and your portal users. If I select user 1, who's logged in over here, we can see that this user is logged in to manage and they're looking at the crystal test burst in the test folder. So we can see who's logged in and what they are currently looking at, right? Now, this is not on by default. So if you update to InfoBurst 2023.2, you're going to see a list of active users, but what's called tracking mode is not turned on. It just shows you who's logged in at that time. If you want to see users specifically what they currently have open, a burst, an XTC, a schedule, whatever they're working on, you'll simply opt in to turn that tracking feature on. So for that, as an administrator, you'd come into System, Configuration, and there's a new config setting called Client Server Mode. And by default, it is set to Session. If you want to track what a user is looking at in real time, then you turn on tracking mode and then you restart the InfoBurst service. We acknowledge that not everyone would be interested in this feature. If no, you can simply turn it off. You can disable the feature entirely. So let's go back over here. Where were we? Monitor users. Okay, so we're there. All right, so I also mentioned the ability to broadcast to users. So I'm going to admin. Let's say I'm going to take down the server. I want to give everyone a heads up. If I hit this broadcast button, let's say server restart in 10 minutes, something like that. So enter your message, hit OK. I want you to watch this other browser window on the top left where I'm logged in as user 1. I'm going to say OK here. And there, user 1 sees the message that I just sent from user Bryan. I'm an admin, and there's my message. So you can send messages to logged in users as an administrator, either broadcast to send a message to all users, or select an individual user and the message option to send just that user a message. So we're hoping that admins will find this feature useful. Everything that I've just showed you is all explained in the documentation. So have a look at those release notes. Go to the section that talks about the new user interface, and it'll tell you everything that I've just explained here. Now, on top of that, I also talked about the ability to receive job status notifications. So I'm an active user in the system, and let's say I'm building and testing bursts, things like that. So here I've got a burst that I've created, and I'm going to kick this off. So I'm running things interactively. These aren't scheduled jobs; these are interactive jobs. So I'm going to run this burst. And I'm not going to sit here and watch it run. Let's say I'm going to go over and open something else. I'm going to open up this memo test, or maybe we'll come in here, and I'm working someplace else in the UI. When that burst I just kicked off runs, you're now going to get a little banner that tells you the burst is completed. It's themed green for success. The burst completed. So I know that that's happened, and I can either close that dialog or I can actually jump to that burst. We won't do that here. Let's go simulate a failure. So that burst finished successfully. Now I'm going to come in and make this break. So I'm going to change the path, let's say to banana, which is not valid. That will cause the burst to fail. So I'm going to save this and run the burst again. Again, I'm not going to sit and watch the log. I'm going to close that. Let's say I'm off doing something else. I'm in here working on this multi-column list. And when my burst fails, we'll get the same status notification, but this time it will be, there it is, abort status. It's themed red. So my burst failed, and let's say I need to go back and change something. Maybe I ran the burst, but I messed up a configuration. You can actually jump to that object, in this case a burst, by just clicking the link. So that'll take me straight into test burst, and then I can come in here and fix my path, for example. So this is just a convenience feature. These will only show up when you're in the UI and running things manually. You're not going to get a bunch of alerts when scheduled jobs finish. Obviously, you could have hundreds of jobs in the system that are scheduled. It wouldn't make sense to show you all of those status messages. It's only for manually run jobs. Oh, let's close that and come back over here. Right. Okay, so there's one other feature in system, and that is the addition of group access for network folders. So traditionally, as an administrator, you've had the ability to restrict a group of InfoBurst users access to, actually, let's go look at it. Let's go here. So let's come up here to manage, and let's talk about group access on InfoBurst folders, right? So in manage, if I go in here to advanced mode, and let's say I want to restrict this notes folder, I would select the folder, I go to access rights, and here I can see all of my InfoBurst groups, and then I can set access, right? Either the group has view or view will create access, or they have no access. This is very basic, what's known as ACL. So I can set that access level on folders. We also have the ability to set that access on here in system platforms, which are connections to things like BusinessObjects and SharePoint and Tableau and Power BI and others. If I come in here, for example, to my BI 4.2 platform, I also have the ability to assign access rights. Again, just like the folders, I can dictate which users see this platform and which don't. Right? Maybe you want to segment folder access based on department or something like that in your organization. So these already exist in InfoBurst, and we have now extended this functionality to network folders. So here within system, if I select network folders, I can see I've got 2 network folders configured. If I click on this first one, again, we have access rights, same UI. Now you can control which user groups can see a network folder. And this is something users have been asking for. This kind of completes the ACL picture, because you might have 50 folders registered, but you don't want to see all groups to see all folders. Now you can segment out that access. I'll just note that when you update to this version, the access rights for any existing folders will have the everyone view right, because we don't want you to update and us to break that access by having this set to no access. So we opt in any existing folders. Everyone can view it, and then you can obviously opt that out if you want to. And then any new folders or network folders you add, then you'd have to opt groups in to see those folders. Right. Let me cancel that. And actually, our main developer John Wilcox has added a webinar chat, and that's just a note that with the new user tracking comes more efficient session management. So, we acknowledge that most users, when they close InfoBurst, they're not coming up here and saying, user account log out, which is a clean log out. More often than not, and I do the same thing, they just come up here and close their browser. Okay, well, that's fine. You're out of InfoBurst, but the session is left open and then eventually will terminate after it's been idle for, I think, a default of 20 minutes. So now with the session tracking, when the user, if the user happens to close the browser to, oh, yeah, I'm getting a note that says the chat was turned off. That's okay. When the user closes the browser, that session is immediately terminated. So it makes the system that much more efficient. And that's it. That's all we have to talk about in terms of features. As always, this webinar is recorded and we'll have it up, that recording up on the event.infosol.com site for you to review later. We will also take the recording and put it into the help desk as well if you'd like to review the webinar or share it with other users. As always, please make sure you're informed, get into the forums, learn about new features. We try to publish as much information as we can there. At the very least, make sure you're following the announcements forum so that you're aware that when we release new versions of software, we have a LinkedIn user group. We'd be happy to see you join that. We have a large community of users there. And within that, let's open it up for questions. There are no questions that came in during the presentation, so let's just hang out for a few seconds and see if there are any questions. And again, please feel free to ask questions about what I've discussed today. If you have any questions that I haven't, on topics I haven't covered, I'm happy to answer those as well. So as we've just released 2023.2, we're starting the development phase of 2023.3. As I said, we're going to be focusing on support for any new versions of Tableau and BusinessObjects that come during that time period. At present, we don't have any big features that we're looking at. I think we're considering 2023.3 more of a maintenance build, just addressing bug fixes and platform support. Let's see. Right, user Mahesh asked about the regression, right? So we've been reaching out to customers. There was a regression that was had actually been there for quite some time. I think it was introduced in 2022.3, and it affected versions 2022.3 through 2023.1, so 3 different versions. And this was a very specific regression, and in fact, of our several hundred InfoBurst customers so far, we've only identified one site that was affected. So specifically, where you are using Excel as a data source, so the Excel file is, let's say, a data source used for report parameter values or email addresses, right? So an Excel file where you're using it as what's called a file list, and then that file list is assigned at the burst level as a document source. In that very specific case, the underlying Excel file could be affected, right? So for that reason, we decided to pull those 3 versions, and this particular, or 2023.2 addresses that regression. But again, that combination of Excel file list plus document source turns out is quite rare. Most of our users, if they're using Excel, use it as what's called a parameter source, which is where at the individual parameter level, you say, I want to use this Excel file list. So for those of you that were holding off on your upgrades, feel free to run with 2023.2. It addresses that issue. Again, it's got a couple of new features. Okay, that's the only question that we've had come in. The only other thing that I'll mention, we don't have details for it today, but just kind of put it in your memory banks that midsummer timeframe, we'll be hosting our annual InfoBurst virtual conference. I don't have details today because I don't think those have been quite established yet, but in the next webinar, we'll certainly get you those details. So if you're interested in joining our virtual conference, you'll be able to do so. Is there a question from Amy? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Sorry. Yep, Amy O'Neill, do the alerts pop up for portal users as well? Yes, they do. And I can target a portal user with a message. I can target a main user interface user with a message. I can broadcast to everyone. So yeah, that applies to the portal as well. Shows the number of bursts failed. Mahesh also asked, do we have standard built-in reports for IB which shows the number of bursts failed and scheduled statistics over a period of time? Yes, we do. I can actually show that to you real quick. Oh, 1 second. Let's see. And I actually closed my browser window. So let's log out as user 1 here, and we'll log back in as me. So Mahesh, we've discussed the Discover feature I'm about to show you in past webinars. Discover was actually released in 2022.3 and was updated over the last several versions. So if you're looking for in-depth information about Discover, I encourage you to go back and review those webinars. Also, the help desk has full documentation on Discover. But here, just as an example, right? You say I want to look at produce a report that shows me failed bursts in let's say a particular time period. I can come in here to System, Discover. Now, if you're on a version older than 2022.3, you won't see any of this. So this is a fairly new feature. And if you're on an old version, then you'll definitely want to update to 2023.2 to get this. So if I come in here and let's say I want to go to System, and you said you wanted to see burst aborts between a time period. So I can say a burst aborted between, and let's just push this back, let's say March 1st to today. Okay, I'll run that. So I'll make this a bit bigger. And so this is that specific Discover report, which gives me all the information I need about aborted bursts between those 2 dates. I can actually, viewing this report interactively, let's say I'm looking at the report and I'm interested in this burst here, all right? Okay, it failed. I wanted to see if it's a configuration problem. I can actually jump from this report straight into, and actually that burst has been deleted. But I could jump into, is this one valid? No, that one's not valid either. So this isn't a great example. I do a lot of deleting. This one's valid here. Right, so here I can jump into that burst and I can actually interact with it from the report. These reports can be scheduled to be delivered. So this one's a really good example, right? I'm an admin and I want to know on a regular basis what bursts have aborted in the system. I can actually save this report. I'll just call this my burst. We'll call it, I probably already have one called that. So I'm going to call it that version 2, for example. So I can save the report and then I can actually come in here and schedule it. So I can schedule to have this delivered to myself or a group of users on a regular basis using the InfoBurst scheduler. It comes to you in a nice Excel format. And actually we can see that here. I'll just download the report and here we can see it. And this is the Excel format that would be delivered to you. And there it is right there. Right, so it's got all the information you need about those particular objects. I can also customize these reports, so I can come in and select columns. I can omit certain columns, right? I can uncheck certain columns. I can reorder columns. Maybe I want the burst path to be the first item here. So I can customize these reports to my liking and then schedule them to be delivered. I hope that addresses your question, Mahesh. And as always, this Discover feature, it is what we're looking to as the go-to reporting feature in InfoBurst. So if there are reports that you're looking for that don't exist, please let us know, log a ticket. We're happy to consider those and get them added as soon as possible. We'd really like this to be a useful feature for our administrators. Okay, he says yes, that addresses it. Okay, I don't see any other questions. As I said, we're looking to keep this short for you all. So thank you all again for your time today. If you have any questions, anything else about 2023.2 2023.2 or anything else that you need from the InfoBurst team, drop us a ticket on the help desk. We're happy to help out. And you should see a notification of this recording, the webinar recording, probably this time tomorrow. So with that, I'll say thank you again and goodbye and have a nice day.